Feminine, Free, and Faithful, revised and updated, and I am Rhonda Chervin, the author of the book, who will be reading you this book. Preface. Feminine, Free, and Faithful was written in 1984 and published in 1986. Since then, many developments in the Catholic world, such as the Apostolic Letter on the Dignity and Vocation of Women and the Magisterium's definitive rejection of proposals for the ordination of women, make an update of the book essential. Much of the original remains, but with significant changes, many from contributions not only of Catholic women writers, but also of the women who have attended lectures and workshops based on the original Feminine, Free, and Faithful. Introduction. I believe that within all women, there is a deep desire to be feminine. With rare exceptions, women prefer to be considered warm, not cold, charming, not repressed, and wise, not merely critical. I believe that within all women there is also a deep desire to be free, a desire to be daring and spontaneous rather than frightened and stiff, to be strong and initiating, not weak and dependent, to be objective and rational, not unrealistic and irrational. I believe that being faithful to God is the key to unfolding the feminine and free personality. The faithful woman has the strength to use her feminine gifts for the good of the kingdom that Christ came to form on earth as it is in heaven. The faithful woman has the love that enables her to use her freedom for the good of everyone she encounters. My experiences have been both the source and impetus for writing Feminine, Free, and Faithful. I am a widow, the mother of 3, 2 young women and 1 son, and grandmother of 4. A professor of philosophy and theology at Franciscan University of Steubenville, I teach courses in the concept of the feminine. A convert to Catholicism, I come from a Jewish, though atheistic, background. I am a writer and speaker and was one of the 5 women consultants to the U.S. bishops who tried to write a pastoral on the concerns of women. I conduct workshops around the world under the title of Free to Love, Healing for Catholic Women. As a consultant to the bishops for 10 years, I daily heard the opinions of Catholic women. They voiced all sides with impulsive cries and polished manifestos. More and more I noticed an either-or developing. Either women should be feminine and forget about liberation, or they should be liberated and realize that femininity is a euphemism for slavery. The growing division of Catholic women into these 2 groups troubles me. Generally, those in the pro-feminine contingent believe in absolute adherence to the teachings of the Church, but do not recognize any need for liberation, and those who are pro-liberation see Church teaching as a hindrance to freedom and seek change. I've always thought that women could be both feminine and free, and that loving fidelity to the teachings of the Church is not a hindrance to, but rather the necessary condition for creative growth. I wrote the first version of this book to prove that there was a way to avoid false alternatives. However, while using my book in courses at catechetical institutes and seminaries and workshops at retreat houses, I realized that intellectual clarity must be balanced by personal healing in the areas of the feminine and masculine. And so in this, my 2nd edition, I have combined facts and concepts with suggestions for individual appropriation. Although I wrote Feminine, Free, and Faithful primarily for women, I have found that many men also consider it an important book. It can help them understand the teachings of the Church and recognize masculine ambivalence toward women in daily life. This book shares my experience of being feminine, free, and faithful in the hope that this will lead women to consider their own experiences. Approach of this book. In the first section of the book devoted to femininity, I explore positive and negative feminine traits. I investigate the roots of these traits from biological, psychological, and sociological viewpoints. I then consider the theory of complementarity, maintaining that feminine and masculine traits fit men and women complementarily, which ultimately fosters good relationships. In the second section, devoted to freedom, I consider the difference between freedom from oppression and freedom to be oneself in the service of God. I demonstrate the compatibility of the elements of freedom, spontaneity, daring, strength, leadership, and objectivity with femininity and faithfulness. I then analyze feminism and the Jungian theory of wholeness in their positive and negative aspects. In both sections, I address women in the single, married, and consecrated life. Further, I highlight women saints, especially Mary, the Mother of God, as our foremothers and heroines. For surely in these women we have tangible proof that being a woman of faith means being both feminine and free. In the section devoted to faithfulness, I present the theological foundations for the Church's teaching on the feminine, including the major consequences it has for ethics, and gives suggestions for healing prayer. I evaluate protests concerning language and the roles of women in the Church, and give more suggestions for healing prayer. Making this strictly studied personal. Now that you have a better idea of what you will find in these pages, make this study more personal by answering some key questions. I will give my response. You can answer either mentally or in a notebook. Share your responses with another person or in a group can be quite helpful. When have you felt most feminine? The occasions when I have felt most feminine include receiving the male sexual explosion of energy, especially when there is hope of new life, experiencing pregnancy and enjoying the beauty of my children while breastfeeding. I would also include those times when my relentless mind reaches a state of stillness and I can simply enjoy the presence of others, when I can flow with love for family, friends, and God. When has femininity seemed most like a trap? I feel this way when some traditional feminine duty interferes with my natural inclinations. For example, when I have to clear the table but would prefer to hear what a guest is going to say next, or when I must respond to a child's needs just while I'm at the peak in my writing. I also feel angry when my ideas are dismissed because I am a woman and therefore unimportant. While this is rarer nowadays, it is nonetheless annoying when it does occur. When do you feel most free? I feel freest when I am spontaneous in a usually formal situation. It gives me enormous joy when in the middle of a class I think of something creative to do and immediately put it into practice. I also feel free when someone shows me that I am loved for myself and not for some beneficial role I can play. When does your own freedom feel most dangerous to your welfare and that of others? I feel terrified when I see that some whimsical stance born of insecurity alienates me from others, leaving me in the cold. I am consumed with guilt when I realize that some wild decision of mine could bring about permanent harm to myself or my loved ones. When do you feel most feminine, free, and faithful? I can be all of these when living out the truths of the Catholic faith. At daily Mass, I feel feminine because I am in a yearning, surrendering interior posture. I feel free because I choose to center my soul on God in this manner. I am faithful because I give the God the honor that is his due and receive Jesus into my person as he so desires. I am taken up in awe of my Lord's great gesture of love in sacrificing himself for me and entering my very body each day. I can also be feminine, free, and faithful when I'm loving toward my family, especially by openly expressing affection. Doing chores feels less free. When lecturing or ministering to a receptive group of Christians, I feel most feminine, free, and faithful as the Holy Spirit moves through me so that the doctrines of the church glow with mystical fire. Who are women you have known or read about who seem to embody femininity, freedom, or faithfulness, or all three? For feminine warmth, I think of my mother, who never let her children go to sleep without a hug, and whose bed was an ever-available refuge. For feminine grace, I think of my twin sister, a dancer, whose ethereal, beautiful movements enchant me. For freedom, I think of unconventional heroines such as Emily Dickinson, Carol Houselander, and Flannery O'Connor. Women who are feminine, free, and faithful include Mary and my favorite saints, who are like spiritual sisters to me. Mary Magdalene, Catherine of Siena, Teresa of Avila, Therese of Lisieux, and Elizabeth Ann Seton. Also on my list of modern-day women such as Adrienne von Speyer, Alice von Hildebrand, and Mother Teresa of Calcutta. While writing Feminine, Free, and Faithful, my prayer has been that this book may help me as well as you to develop the best qualities of femininity and freedom as faithful daughters of the Church.